Shalom, giving all honor, all praise, and all glory to Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Arachak The abundance to the elder apostles and bishops of the great millstone that rule well. And as always, peace, blessings, and salutations unto the woeful elect tabernacle of David scattered abroad across the four winds of the earth. Now, as you can see, through the actions of Nero Foe 7, aka Donald Trump, you can see the prophetic implications in his actions. And we're going to focus on that particular prophecy, which we will be going over, Habakkuk, the second chapter, pretty much the prophet Habakkuk, he was asking the Heavenly Father, why was he utilizing an ungodly nation such as the Babylonians, the Chaldeans, to dominate and rule over Judah? Why are you using a nation more wicked than Judah and dominating them? So the answer was given to Habakkuk, and then the Lord puts it all in perspective, because at the end of the day, that particular nation, though he uses it for prophetic fulfillment, he also judges that nation of its injustice. All the wickedness that that nation does, the Lord judges it in the end. But he will use an ungodly nation to judge Israel, whenever Israel goes off. All right, but fast forward to today, we're in modern Babylon, Babylon the Great, and you see in these same actions being carried out. All right, as far as the insatiable appetite for exploitation, power, resources, wealth. All right, and there's a very greedy devil, who can never be satisfied, and thus, blood will have to spill for them to get, what their hearts desire. So this is a clip that surfaced today of Trump, and he's talking about how the West, the U.S. had rights to the oil down there in Venezuela, and he's basically saying, hey, we want it back. All right, so Esau's taking claim, to resources in a whole nother land that don't belong to him. Now, first, when you go to the prophetic blessing that will fall upon one of the tribes of Israel when Jacob or Israel, Yasharallah, was on his deathbed, he granted blessings, prophetic blessings to all of his sons. And when you deal with the tribe of Asher, which we teach is the Brazilians, the Venezuelans, the Colombians, they will make up the tribe of Asher, and this is one of the clues, based on the blessing. Let's go to Genesis 49 real quick. And I'm gonna read the first couple of verses, and it says, "And Jacob called unto his sons and said, Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which shall befall you in the last days." And we're in the last days currently, okay? And this was a prophecy concerning, what would befall his sons. All right. And every son, which later became a tribe, they all received their portion. Okay. And this was how we were able, this is how we helped to identify, where they would reside in the last days. All right. And that's primarily what you see on the 12 tribe sign to this day. All right. And let me go down to Asher. It is Genesis 49 and verse 20, and it says, out of Asher his bread shall be fat, and he shall yield royal dainties. All right? Because that land is a very rich land in resources. Okay? They're sitting on the biggest deposits of oil basically on the face of the earth. So that's why all these countries are investing in that land. All right. And when you go to, let's go from there. Let's go to Deuteronomy, the 33rd chapter, where it further elaborates on the blessing of Asher. It is Deuteronomy 33, verse 24, and it says, and of Asher he said, let Asher be blessed with children, let him be acceptable to his brethren, and let him dip his foot in oil. See that? Thy shoes shall be iron and brass, and as thy days, so shall thy strength be. You know, because not only are they rich in oil, they're also rich in minerals as well. Okay, iron and other minerals. So there's a reason why Venezuela has a bullseye, a target on his land. All right, Esau sees that, and that's what he wants. And it tells you that in Micah, let's go to Micah real quick. This is Micah 2, verse 2, and I'll read it in the NLT. And it says, when you want a piece of land, you find a way to seize it. When you want someone's house, you take it by fraud and violence. You cheat a man of his property, stealing his family's inheritance. And that's ultimately what Esau is trying to do. And this is what he's been doing since his very existence. You know, he's been a very envious, covetous individual. All right. So since he's blessed with that sword, going back to the blessing that Isaac gave, that he would live by the sword, this is exactly how he gets his inheritance. He takes it by force. He seizes it with violence, with military force. This is what he's been known to do. So this is what we're witnessing. All right. So going back here, you know, what is it that the tribe of Asher is sitting on? Let him dip his foot in oil. They got that oil down there. Okay. And Esau's blessing is that he would be given the fatness of the earth. So this is why this devil is entitled, or feels entitled. Let's go to Genesis 27 real quick. Is Genesis 27, and I'm gonna get straight to the point. Start at verse 38. And Esau said unto his father, hast thou but one blessing, my father? This is after Jacob Yaquabbed him, and he received the blessing. It says, bless me, even me also, O my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth, and of the dew of heaven from above, and by thy sword shalt thou live, and serve thy brother. And it shall come to pass, when thou shalt have the dominion, that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. All right. And due to the inherited right that Jacob received, Esau has been envious. You know, he sought vengeance against Jacob ever since. So that's why there's that bad blood and hostility. Okay, and Asher is one of the tribes. So, you know, Esau sees them as an enemy too. Okay. So let's look up that word fatness, because it says thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. And when you actually look up what it means, And you see the word there is mashaman, which means basically oil. All right, shaman means oil, and then it says mashaman. Okay. It says fatness, fat piece, fertile place, richly prepared food, fatness, fat pieces, oil, olive oil. Okay. So we know that Venezuela is very rich in oil. So here it is, Trump, he's willing to wage a false war, based on their covetousness, their desire. And that's what Habakkuk was prophesying about. So as we always quote Habakkuk, the second chapter, where it says at the around the third verse, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come, it will not tarry. So let's watch this clip real quick. It's real short, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, what was that? Getting land, oil rights, whatever we had, they took it away because we had a president that maybe wasn't watching. But they're not going to do that. We want it back. They took our oil rights. We had a lot of oil there. As you know, they threw our companies out, and we want it back.
So Esau, he wants the fatness no matter where he's at, even if it's not in territory that he possesses. That, and that's his desire is as Shaul. All right, and so let's get into it. And now because they've been striking these boats in the Caribbean, claiming that these are drug boats. But reports have been coming out saying they're striking fisher boats. These are civilians making a living, and they're striking them and using propaganda, just to justify their actions. And it's inhumane, but this devil don't care. He'll get it by any means necessary. Really, the only way he knows how, which is through the force of that sword, violence. So this is the reason why Venezuela is next on the hit list. All right, they're pretty much surrounding Venezuela, and they're sending U.S. military vessels, and they're basically constructing a blockade on Venezuelan oil tankers. So it's pretty much getting ready to go up. All right, so beginning of 2026, we're more than likely going to see conflict. All right, and I'm pretty sure Russia and China, they might get indirectly involved. They're not going to get directly involved, but I say they more than likely would be indirectly involved because they have investment into Venezuela. Venezuela is a potential candidate for the BRICS nations. Brazil is already a part of it. Venezuela is just right up above Brazil, sitting on all that oil reserves. So this is why they're waging war against Venezuela. So let me go from there, and I'm matter of fact, let's just go to Habakkuk, the first chapter. This is Habakkuk 1. And we're going to start at the 12th verse, and I'm going to read it in the Amplified Bible. So it says, Habakkuk 1 and 12, and it says, are you not from everlasting, O Lord, my power, my Holy One? We will not die, O Lord. You have appointed the Chaldeans who rule in Babylon. These were the wise men of Babylon, to execute your judgment. And you, O rock, have established them to correct and chastise. Yet the Lord rules in the kingdom of men, and he sets up over it whom he will. And he can use any nation, all right, to put hell on another nation. In particular, he could use a nation to punish Israel when Israel is not right. And that was the case back then. All right, Judah was trying to make pacts and treaties with the Assyrians and Egypt. It was going down to Egypt for help. But yet, Judah was immersed in their wickedness. It was worshiping wood and stone, committing idolatry. The priesthood was polluted. They wasn't doing the right thing, under the priesthood. So the Lord used the Babylonians to take down Jerusalem at the time. All right. But Habakkuk, he wanted clarity on it. It says, your eyes are too pure to approve evil. You cannot look favorably on wickedness. Why then do you look favorably on those who act treacherously? Why are you silent when the wicked Chaldean oppressors destroy those more righteous than they? Because you weigh us in a balance. It tells you that it was at Second Ezra, the 3rd chapter, and it basically says, let me go to it. Let me go to Second Ezra 3. Yeah, Second Ezra 3 and 34, and it says, weigh thou therefore our wickedness now in a balance, and there's also that dwell the world, and so that thy name nowhere be found but in Israel. Well, when was it that they which dwell upon the earth have not sinned in thy sight, or what people have so kept thy commandments? Thou shalt find that Israel by name have kept thy precepts, but not the heathen. Okay. So, these heathens, matter of fact, let me jump up actually. I should have started up above. Second Ezra 3 and 26, it says, and in all things did even as Adam and all his generations had done, for they also had a wicked heart. And so thou gavest thy city over into the hands of thine enemies. Are their deeds then any better than, are their deeds then any better that inhabit Babylon, that they should therefore have the dominion over Zion? For when I came thither and had seen impieties without number, then my soul saw many evildoers in this 30th year, so that my heart failed me. For I have seen how thou sufferest them sinning, and hast spared wicked doers, and has destroyed thy people, and has preserved thine enemies, and has not signified it. I do not remember how this way may be left. Are they then of Babylon better than they of Zion? Or is there any other people that know of thee beside Israel? Or what generation have so believed thy covenants as Jacob? And yet their reward appeareth not, and their labor have no fruit. For I have gone there and there through the heathen, and I see that they flow in wealth and think not upon thy commandments. Weigh thou therefore our wickedness now in the balance, and there's also that dwell the world, and so shall thy name be nowhere be found but in Israel. Because the Lord, he left his, he gave us an inheritance. He gave us a legacy of righteousness to govern ourselves. All right. He gave us laws, statutes, commandments, and a land. All right. And he stamped his name among us. But of course, Israel blasphemed, polluted his name. All right. And so the Most High, he turned his face from Israel. He said that you were sold unto the nations, but not for your destruction, but because you moved the Lord to wrath. So yeah, you would discontinue from your heritage. And the Lord will raise up the Babylonians, because that was also prophetic. Daniel saw in a vision, he saw the Babylonians. Really, he was in the Babylonian Empire when he got the vision. He was breaking it down to Nebuchadnezzar. Okay. So anyway, so Habakkuk, the same thing that Ezra was going into was the same thing that Habakkuk was complaining about. So it says, verse 14, it says, why do you make men like the fish of the sea? Meaning like, you know, you, you make it to where these, men, they're just for the taking. You make them powerless and you raise up a nation and they just come and just, you know, snatch you up like fish in a net. They just come and basically seize you with their imperialism and conquest and basically take everything, take your land, your resources, take you for spoils. And that's what Babylon, when the Lord rose the Babylonians up, that's what they were doing. It says, like reptiles and creeping things that have no ruler and are helpless against their enemies. The Chaldeans bring all of them up with a hook and drag them away with a net. And Judah got carried away into Babylon, right? And gather them together in their fishing net, so they rejoice and are glad, right? And Esau, he prides himself on the history of, the conquest of Europe, how they came and conquered, basically the majority of the world. And that's how, they got where they are. They like it says in the second chapter, which I'm gonna get to, they neither keepeth at home. They gather to them all people, and this is how they've been gathering to themselves all nations. They went around with their imperialism and just was conquering and exploiting through violence, through the force of the sword, military invasions, wars. It says, therefore they offer sacrifices to their net and burn incense to their fishing net, because through these things their catch is large and they live luxuriously and their food is plentiful. And when you parallel that with Babylon, has a lot of riches. And nations that did commerce with Babylon, they would get rich because of their luxury. And that's why she has that attitude, I'm a queen, thou that dwelleth in that are given to pleasures and dwell careless. That's Babylon. Matter of fact, let me get Jeremiah 20. No, it's like Jeremiah 49 and 31. And it says, arise, get you up unto the wealthy nation that dwelleth without care, saith the Lord, which have neither gates nor bars, which dwell alone. And Babylon is that wealthy nation, okay? So going back, it says, will they continue to empty their net and mercilessly go on destroying nations without sparing? And that's why Babylon is the hammer of the earth. You didn't have so many conflicts worldwide on a global scale, and all these nations, they all remember. Okay, and that's why the last half of a century, they've been developing weapons. Nuclear weapons, a nuclear arsenal. Military apparatus technology. Just to finally be able to have the resources and the power to defend themselves against this dominant force. So, like Venezuela, for example, I'm pretty sure Russia is going to send some type of military aid to help them out. That's why I said that, they may indirectly get involved with this. But this is what the nations have to do to protect themselves against this insatiable dominant powerhouse that's just insatiable and greedy for power and gain, wealth, wealthy gain. Okay, it tells you that in the Apocrypha Sirach, the 14th chapter, around the 9th verse. It says that an envious man is not satisfied with his portion. A covetous man is not satisfied with his portion. And that envy drive up his soul. So, he doesn't care even if civilians got to die. Because hey, this is the same power force that slaughtered a lot of our people. All right, that were already dwelling here in Americas. That was rich in what? Gold, right? You had all the resources that were here in Babylon, and what did they do when they came over here? So we know that history. And then they colonized, Latin America, where the other tribes are. And now, today, um, some of those lands are actually under U.S. military invention. Okay, they actually occupy. Okay, so this is what I did here. Let's go here. This is Chat GPT, and it says the book of Habakkuk addresses the Babylonian Empire. This is after I asked it, to give me a rundown on Habakkuk's prophecy against the greed of Babylon. Right? It says the book of Habakkuk addresses the Babylonian Chaldean Empire, which at the time was the rising world power notorious for conquest, exploitation, and plundering other nations' resources. See that? And this is what, this is the track record of the West. It says how the prophecy unfolds. Habakkuk's first concern, Habakkuk initially complains to the Most High about violence and injustice within Judah itself. Second point, God's surprising answer. The Most High says he is raising up the Chaldeans, Babylonians, as instruction of judgment against Judah, just like he raised up the Assyrian against Samaria, the northern kingdom. Okay, and these were wicked empires, but the Lord used them to judge Israel because Israel were being disobedient. We know that the Lord, he chastens and scourges his people. Like it says in Amos, the 3rd chapter, you only have I known of all the families of the earth, therefore will I punish you for all your iniquities. Habakkuk's second concern, the prophet then struggles with this. How can a nation more wicked than Judah be used to judge it? He describes Babylon as a brutal empire that gathers nations like fish in a net, plunders peoples, lives by violence and greed. And you can see throughout the years, NATO, through the influence of America and the firepower of America, that they done ran all type of military interventions and invasions, for the last 50 years. Libya, Iraq, right? Yugoslavia, all type of countries. And what they did to them countries is what they're going to try to currently do to Venezuela. Now, what I did was I just typed in for AI overview a list of all countries that America imperialized. And this is what it said. It says the U.S. has had a complex history involving territorial acquisition, military interventions, and control, with key examples including the Philippines, Puerto Rico, Guam, American Samoa, Cuba, via protectorate lease, Panama Canal Zone. Trump been talking about the Panama Canal as well. And not to mention how the Gulf of Mexico, when he got in there, he basically changed it to the Gulf of America. So they want all the Western world. They already got the Europe. They already got parts of Africa. So the whole entire Western hemisphere is theirs for the taking too. And it took them hundreds of years to finally get it. But now here we are, and this devil's still not satisfied. He wants more and more and more, and that's what this prophecy is going into. It says in the Marshall Islands, Palau, and Micronesia, UN trusteeships, imperial actions also involve numerous other nations through occupations and regime changes such as Haiti, Dominican Republic, Nicaragua, Vietnam, Iraq, Chile, and Guatemala, though these weren't always outright colonization. And then here all the territories acquired or controlled. The Philippines, Puerto Rico, Guam, U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Northern Marianas. All right. Panama Canal Zone, Cuba, Hawaii, which was annexed. So all this history. They occupied all these different countries through war. By the sword, because he lived by that sword. So it says down here, it says God's judgment on the ruling empire. In Habakkuk 2, the Most High pronounces 5 woes against Babylon, condemning it for looting other nations. Habakkuk 2 and 6 through 8, unjust gain and exploitation, verses 9 through 11, violence, bloodshed, and oppression, verses 12 through 17, and idolatry and self-deification, verses 18 through 19. All right. It says a key statement sums it up: because you have plundered many nations, and peoples who are left will plunder you. So they're going to get sick and tired at some point. And right now they're coming up under the power structure that those BRICS countries are coming together to basically reinforce as a counter to Western dominance. Okay, and with Russia having that military might and firepower, and China having an economic wealth, through their manufacturing and trade. So nations are starting to follow suit up under that power dynamic to undermine and come against the West in the Western influence. It says the broader message, Habakkuk is prophesying against a ruling imperial power that enriched itself through conquest and exploitation. At the same time, the book teaches that the Most High is sovereign over all nations. He may use a wicked empire temporarily, but he will ultimately judge that empire for its injustice. And that's ultimately what the second chapter is going into. Now you got Russia, or you got this guy here, Sergei Lavrov. It says Russia's Lavrov says Moscow backs Tehran as he condemns Western theft of frozen assets. Right? And this is after, recently, I believe a Iranian ship, I think that was going to, I don't know if it was going to China. I think it might have been going to China, ended up getting sieged. And then we're seeing that America's sieging oil tankers from Venezuela. So now you have the foreign minister of Russia. He's condemning what was happening. So it says Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov condemned Western pressure on Iran's nuclear program and defended Tehran's rights under international law during an interview with Iran's state broadcaster IRIB on December 15th, according to a transcript published by the Russian Foreign Ministry. Lavrov criticized the International Atomic Energy Agency for failing to condemn attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities, describing European diplomatic tactics as those of swindlers and thieves. He said the EU's actions as triggering sanctions mechanisms against Iran represented a disgrace to European diplomacy, and his latest tirade against the 27-member bloc in Britain. And this is just more shameful spewing upon them. And the nations are sitting back and they're seeing and viewing how, this is a common pattern with them, right? It says when 3 European countries, referring to the so-called European Three, Germany, France, and Britain, fraudulently pushed through a decision to restore sanctions against the Islamic Republic of Iran, Real honest diplomats do not behave this way. This is how swindlers and thieves behave, Lavrov said. So in other words, he's saying he's saying that the same sentiment that is echoed in this prophecy. All right, when it says, and let's go to Habakkuk 2. This is Habakkuk 2. Yeah, this is let me go to, yeah, verse 6 is the point. Let me start at verse 5. It says, moreover, wine is treacherous and betrays the arrogant man, so that he does not stay at home. His appetite is large like Sheol, and he is like death, never satisfied. He gathers to himself all nations and collects to himself all peoples as if he owned them. Yeah, he draws them in his net, right? Will all these victims of his greed not take up a taunting song against him and in mocking derision against him say, woe, judgment is coming to him who increases that which is not his? How long will he possess it? And woe to him who makes himself wealthy with loans. You know, basically the thick debt. All right. And the elites, of course, is behind, these very actions, because the elites, they've been the quiet behind the curtain power and force and control of Babylon. All right, the little hats, okay, Amalek. So you're seeing this sentiment is being echoed, constantly through these other nations. And yeah, the Russians, they're Edomites too, but you got Esau, coming against another group of Edomites. This is Satan casting out Satan, right? So let me go back to the article. So this is basically what he's calling out. You're a damn thief. You're like a swindler and a thief, man. You keep taking what don't belong to you. It says the foreign minister drew parallels between frozen Iranian assets and Russia's experience with Western sanctions. This inclination towards theft is apparently genetically inherent in many of our Western colleagues, he said, referring to frozen Russian, Iranian, and Venezuelan assets. You taking their oil, their oil tankers, and seizing them. All right. So that's basically what's being cried out right now, pursuing the Habakkuk, the second chapter. Will all these victims of his greed not take up a taunting song against him and a mocking derision against him say, woe, judgment is coming to him who increases that which is not his? Yeah, you're a swindler. You're a thief. How long will he possess it? And woe to him who makes himself wealthy with loans. Will your creditors not rise up suddenly, and those who collect you awaken? Then you will become plunder for them. Because these nations are going to start to eventually stand up for themselves, and they're going to come against you. All right. Verse 8, because you, king of Babylon, have looted many nations. All right, you didn't conquered and exploited many nations. All people who are left will loot you because of human bloodshed and for the violence done to the land, to the city and all its inhabitants. All right. So judgment is going to eventually come. All right. The Lord's going to put the spirit on these nations and they come against the whore and destroy her with fire and make her desolate. So let me go here, because I also asked ChatGPT. No, this the one. So I said, what does it mean he neither keepeth at home in Habakkuk 2 and 5? It says in Habakkuk 2 and 5, the phrase he neither keepeth at home describes the character of the arrogant oppressor traditionally understood as Babylon and more broadly any pride-driven tyrant. You better believe Trump is very proud. He is a pride-driven tyrant. He's showing that since he got in office. All right, it says what it means. The phrase does not mean homelessness or literal absence from one's house. Instead, it conveys restlessness and insatiable ambition. This is why it says that they sleep not except they have done mischief. You know, they work evil upon their beds. They woe to them that work evil upon their beds when the morning is light. They practice it because it is in the power of their hand. And then they go and take lands by violence. They take it by force. And oppress a man in his house, even a man in his heritage. That's all based on their insatiable ambition to control, rule, and have everything under their possession. It says in the Hebrew, the idea is that he does not remain settled or content. Because America produces its own oil. But that's definitely not enough. I want to spend Red's money on some Debo shit. That's Esau's MO. He is driven outward, always expanding, conquering, grasping for more. King David said, "I have seen the wicked spread themselves in power as a green bay tree, constantly expanding." Britain, basically Europe. When the devil came out of the bottomless pit, they expanded. They took over all of Europe, and then they expanded over to the Western Hemisphere and conquered. There's key ideas behind the phrase restless arrogance. He cannot stay put or be satisfied with what he has. Definitely not in Esau. The word content, that's not in Esau's vocabulary. He doesn't recognize contentment. All right? He's very covetous. He says imperial aggression. Like Babylon, he is always on the move, invading, conquering, accumulating power. With their latest move, they're getting ready to invade and conquer Venezuela. But I'm pretty sure Venezuela, they're prepared. They're not going to win, of course, But unless, because Rome did fall by expanding themselves militarily. They spread themselves thin, fighting too many conflicts, and that costs a lot of money. And we're already in a debt hole so deep that America would never find itself out of. Okay, so you see the prices of gold and silver going up. The purchasing power of the dollar is decreasing, so they got to go to war at some point. All right, and now that this is a major focus, those European countries are starting to feel abandoned, that America is no longer focused in helping to protect them of their interests. NATO and the European countries, and that's leaving them vulnerable to further military expansion of Russia, where at some point they're going to end up taking Ukraine. So that's part of why the EU is starting to shift away from dependency and partnership with the U.S. And that's also falling into prophecy. How the beast will hate the whore. So it's interesting how this is all playing out, man. But hey, the Lord said that his word does not go void, but it will accomplish that which he pleases, and it will prosper to where he sends it. It says a lack of peace or stability. As long as this devil has been in power, there's never been any peace. That's how you can identify the red horse in Revelation 6 and verse 4. All right, a great sword was given unto him to take away peace from the earth. Lack of peace or stability, pride prevents him from dwelling securely or quietly. There's always some type of war or conflict or bloodshed. There's never been any time of world peace as long as this man has been dominant. It says moral instability, his inner corruption shows itself in constant outward expansion. All right. It says these all, you go into the different translations, these all emphasize ceaseless desire and expansion, not physical housing. Okay. So That's all playing into the actions that we see carrying out today through devils like uh, Nero 47, Donald Trump, and even the previous administrations before him. Why were we in Afghanistan? Why were we in Iraq, waging these wars on false pretense? They'll go off of a narrative and then wage war. And then you find out what the war was really for. It was to take resources. So the same thing with Venezuela right now. This is, their illegal drug trade and human trafficking down there. We got to get rid of these criminals and stop their enterprise. But no, you're making it known you want the oil down there. We already knew that from the get-go. So this man, he's just, and the world is seeing it. All right. So you're going to hear more from nations that's, closely watching, and, they're going to, continue to share their disapproval. Or verse 9, it says, woe, judgment is coming to him who obtains wicked gain for his house and thinks by doing so to set his nest on high, that he may be rescued from the hand of evil. Yeah, because he feel like his wealth is his security. He going to be able to hide behind that security. Because with that wealth, you get to empower, your military might. All right, you take that oil, now you can use it and apply it towards your, your warships, your fighter planes, your fighter jets, all these different military vessels that uses fossil fuel. Remember under the Biden administration, how they were trying to push for this green energy agenda? That we're trying to get rid of the use of carbon emission and using fossil fuel. But here it is, he's getting ready to wage a war so that they can take some oil. You see? Because oil is a very valuable asset, especially when it comes to war. So they think that they're going to be protected, by this. And they're going to be rescued from the hand of evil. The Most High, you can't escape the Lord's evil, man. When the Lord puts judgment, when he brings judgment upon a nation, you cannot escape it. But they think that, their security will buy them that type of, they believe that their wealth will buy them that type of security. This is why the elites are trying to go underground, with their deep underground military bunkers, their luxury shelters down underground. They got their doomsday planes and so on and so forth. Because they know, what's getting ready to come. They didn't cause all this mischief and evil and chaos in the earth. And then they think that they're going to, go down and hide, while the world just implodes on itself. But you could read Amos, the 9th chapter, in the first few verses. They're not going to escape. It says, you have devised a shameful thing for your house by cutting off and putting an end to many peoples. Yeah, so much bloodshed, a lot of death, a lot of casualties as a result of this man's greed. So you are sinning against your own life and forfeiting it. And he's just tallying up his tab. That's all he's doing. His sins are going to be reached unto heaven. Okay. He's going to be holding with the cords of his sins. So he saw when the Lord shows up, it's going to be a just judgment. When the Most High, when Yahweh Shai shows up, to who is this that coming from Edom with dyed garments from Basra? That's all. It's going to be a day of retribution, vengeance. It says, for the stone will cry out from the wall to accuse you, built in sin, and the rafter will answer it out of the woodwork. Woe, judgment is coming to him who builds a city with bloodshed and establishes a town by violence. And he's done that throughout history, and he's, hell, America. That great city was built on the bloodshed of the saints. So you already know how the Lord, what He requires of blood that's spilled in the land. It got to be cleansed. It got to be cleansed by the blood of those who shed the blood. It says, "It is not indeed from the Lord of hosts that people's labor only for the fire that will destroy their work, and nations grow weary for nothing. That is, things which have no lasting value. But the time is coming when the earth shall be filled with the knowledge of the glory of the Lord, as the waters cover the sea." And that's why, with this knowledge being increased, so much is being found out. That's how Esau is being searched out, and the man of sin is being revealed. All right, and that's really because of us. We're the ones that would put that spirit out there. And now you see in a growing resentment, from the nations against this devil. Okay, it says, "Woe, judgment is coming to you who make your neighbors drink, who mix in your venom to make them drunk." And the world was drunken by their philosophies, their democracy. And they was able to get in bed with the whore and do business, but now they're seeing that this whore, she's taking everybody down. She's poisoning everybody. So now the nations are sobering up, and now they blasting this whore. It says, so that they may look at their nakedness. You see, our people, they've been drunken with Western culture and values that our people stop. They don't even know who they are. Our people have become degenerated, since being over here. And Esau can look on our people and see how gone they are, but this is all they're doing. Because they indoctrinated our people. You enslaved them, and then you indoctrinated them. Filled their heads with that venom. Broken the family, the nuclear family structure. Filled them with feminism. You filled them with basically belief in this damn system. Equality. So the women don't respect the men. They're competitive with their own men. It says, "You will be filled with disgrace instead of honor. Now drink and expose your own nakedness. The cup of wrath of the Lord's hand will come around to you, O destroyer, and utter disgrace will be your own glory." And that's what it is, man. You're a disgrace. And the Lord is, He's lifting up that skirt and showing all the nations, your nakedness and your shame. Okay. So here we are. So now the next step is the next stop, Venezuela. Try to go for the oil. But I'm pretty sure Maduro ain't gonna just lay down. Especially given, the aid that he's been getting from those other superpowers. And then, we know that their neighboring countries like Colombia, they're gonna stand with Maduro. So here it is, man. But anyway, I just wanted to go into that, and hopefully y'all were edified. Let me give all honor, praise, and glory to Yahweh Shem Shai. To the next lesson, I say Shalom.